All right, we are live. So it looks like the stock market crash has resumed this Friday. We're going to get into what's going on there, and then we'll discuss whatever you guys want to discuss, any questions you have. Obviously, I am no expert, so don't take anything I say and think it's definitely going to happen, because it for sure might not. So anyway, one thing I always look at when the stock market is declining is gold, because if there's a negative reaction in gold, generally means people are scrambling for liquidity. So I always look at what gold is doing, and it did start to sell off on Friday, and it's really struggled to break out of this all-time high, sorry. But if you go to gold Canadian dollar, pretty much same thing. It's really struggled to get up, and obviously the high volume that you see down here, that happened during the last stock market sell-off that we had, like the mini crash which happened essentially. So it's very interesting what's happening. All bonds are declining, so that's suggesting growth and expectation is on the decline, and it's going to continue to decline. You also saw currencies that really took a hit. The Canadian dollar went on a hell of a rally after hitting the 2-year low down here. I don't generally do the CAD USD, but I know everybody likes to see it that way around. I'm always looking at USD CAD, and it also shows you the volume of what happened. So when you hit that 2-year low or 2-year high, if you're looking at this chart, you had a huge amount of volume. Obviously, we also know that the Canadian dollar was heavily shorted, and it has been incredibly weak as well. So, but you know, it is not immune by any sense of the imagination just because it's had a rally here. It's definitely not immune to a massive sell-off or liquidity crisis. Anything that's going to happen like that is going to affect the Canadian dollar. And I also take a look at like pound dollar, euro dollar to see what's going on. And those were also selling off on Friday. So this supposedly came after a jobs report in the United States. But I think if anybody believes that, it's pretty much naive, because, you know, I've played out so many strategies and tested so many strategies for trading when you're trying to trade news like that, or data announcements or data releases. And it's 50-50. Like if there's a jobs report that's bad, market can rip off that, and vice versa. I have been through so many tests on that, and there's just absolutely no correlation. So it's more probably the market is starting to fall now because it's starting to realize it's all about to hit the fan, because the commercial real estate collapse, I think that's going to be the apex event for this global financial crisis. But then you layer on top of that the already cost of living crisis that is going on in Canada, the massive distortions in the economy that have been caused by the housing bubble and people just investing insane amount, well, pretty much their entire net worth into housing. So, and thanks for hitting the like button. I keep seeing the like button. Every time people hit the like button, it comes up, and it does actually help with these longer live streams, because the more people that hit the like button, the more people that will get notified that we're live. That's just the way it works, unfortunately. So I'll go through your comments, questions, whatever you want to talk about, guys. I'll keep this open as always. So see what's going on here in the comments. Probably most people just talking to each other at this point. Melt up, then melt down. Yeah, exactly. I mean, it was pretty much a sucker's rally for the last month. At least it looks like it. We'll have to continue to see what happens there, but it's very interesting. And obviously we've known on this channel that, you know, the economy in Canada has been in a terrible recession. It's in a depression, in my opinion. A lot of people, they don't even realize what is going on. There's still people who are just making massive financial commitments. And, you know, people often say, well, Luke, in your videos, you never talk about solutions. You should be talking more about solutions. Just realize I don't know everybody's personal situation. So it's pretty much impossible for me to recommend to do something apart from the basic things that most people do not do, like have a financial plan, know your budget. You know how many people just do a simple spreadsheet, knowing what comes in, what goes out. They just don't do it. You know how many people have subscriptions that have been going on for like 12 months and then they realize later people don't do it. And you really got to take finances seriously. And it just comes down to simple budgeting, having a plan of what you're going to do if you lose your job, how you can reduce your expenses, everything like that. Because layoffs, they're going to get worse if you've got skills. Obviously, like if you're an engineer or something like that, then you're probably not going to be hit hard by this recession. But if you're working in construction or anything related to the housing market, that's obviously cyclical. You're going to get hit with that. You're probably already being hit with that. And then the government jobs, probably not going to be affected either, unfortunately. I don't really care who's in charge. I like Andrew Henderson when he says he's politically homeless, because I would say the same thing. Like, none of the political parties in Canada represent my views or even near to my views, because it's either like a choice between more crony capitalism or like socialism with crony capitalism, or like more socialism, less crony capitalism. So, you know, and you just have to look at Alberta if you think the federal Conservatives are going to change things massively and, you know, make the economy do a U-turn. Just look at Alberta, because you've got a premier that's been in and just made a cost of living crisis worse, done more stimulus checks, done pretty much all the things. She's been really hard on the stimulus checks. She invited people over on a campaign that was taxpayer funded. Nobody asked for that. And that was all to basically make the economy look better than it actually is. That's what they do. These politicians, just remember, no politician, a good leader has to make tough decisions. And all these leaders are just literally going with wherever the political winds blow, like sentiment. It's not what's best for the country long term. It's what's best to get them elected next time. And that's the real problem that we have. Nobody really cares about the country long term. It's all about getting elected. And we're yet to hear like some sort of economic plan from any of the parties about what they're going to do. So it'll be very, very interesting. So I'm just looking at your comments right now. Why are CIBC and RBC stocks roaring? Well, compared to most of the other banks in Canada, they've actually been some of the better in terms of earnings, but that doesn't really mean a lot. I mean, they're at all-time highs, whereas you look at like National Bank, although that one might actually be at all-time highs as well. Punjab National Bank. Oh, God, I can't even remember some of these tickers. Canadian Imperial Bank of Commerce. This is the US ticker. But yeah, that one's at all-time high. But then you got banks like BMO. They're nowhere near all-time high. They're down quite a bit, actually. And then you've got like Laurentian Bank, which, you know, is a chartered financial institution. They're in the repo market. They're a systemic bank. And you look at them and they're down quite a bit as well. So, yeah, it depends on the bank. But again, like, the market's not going to really realize anything until later down the road when the crisis really happens. When you've got so many, like most of the Canadian banks, their basically entire asset book is just loans, and it's just loans to private businesses. That makes up about 40-50% at most of them. The rest is to average people. And all you've got to do is ask the question, how much confidence do you have that the average person is going to be able to pay their bills? I mean, we go through all these surveys on the channel all the time and all these stories where people are basically, and like the Equifax report that we're going to go through next week, that report is very, very interesting and telling of what's going on with the consumer coming right from the credit agency itself. The data is so far lagging. That's my main concern with that data. You're looking at Q2, I think, and we're just about to head into Q4. So it's just unbelievable, really. But, you've just got to think about your faith in these institutions. Are they going to get their money back, essentially? And you know what? Yeah, it's just not going to happen. And Canadian businesses are in even worse positions because their business debt is over 300%, or it might have just gone under 300% because it has been coming back down, deleveraging, which is never a good sign. And a lot of that debt has been built up around the housing market and government. I mean, those are literally the main things. And Canada has commodities. Canada's a large company, vast amounts of land. It has a massive land bubble. That's a problem as well. There are so many things and it's so sad as well. I think it's the thing I've realized the most over the past couple of years is Canada's an insanely beautiful country, beautiful people as well. And it's just sad to see a country get ruined like this, especially when you're like me and you come from England and you've seen this happen before. And it was the reason why you left. And then you came to Canada and watched the same thing happen, like the uncontrolled immigration, the massive amount of government. I mean, the private sector spending in the UK, even most of it is government related. And I saw stats on it about 12 months ago. It was something like 80% of spending in the economy in the UK relates to government, which is just absolutely insane. And that's the way Canada is going as well. Like government is going to be the thing that saves us. It's actually the thing that's making it worse. Like, people just don't understand the simple concept that if you have lots of money coming from the government and they're borrowing that money, that's new money. You're creating inflation. The government doesn't create anything. In fact, they do the opposite of create things. They actually take stuff away because it's red tape and regulation that the government is usually doing. And yeah, it's just insane, the sizes of these governments. So Brad, okay, first question, who cut your hair? I go to a Chinese barber and he's absolutely fantastic. The guy's over 70 years old, and I'm not fussy at all about who cuts my hair. And I know I even looked before this video, and yeah, my hair is a mess. It's so funny that somebody asked that question, though. You gotta be broke and desperate to move to Calberta. I think it's hopium that is driving most people to move to Alberta. They just think it's going to solve all their problems, but they're all part of a cycle, and I think it's one of the most fascinating cycles when you look at the boom bust cycles in Alberta, because, they happen roughly like between once and twice every decade. And this is probably the only one that we've ever seen where it's been like pushed by the government, where the government has actually encouraged it. And yeah, apparently people still take note and listen to the government. I mean, I'm not really sure about the quality of the people you're getting if they believe government propaganda and they're on the TTC and they're like, oh, Alberta is calling, housing prices are cheaper. Maybe I should move there. I mean, I spoke to some guy about 2 months ago. I was selling all my stuff in Calgary, and I spoke to a guy, and he just moved from Nova Scotia, and he just couldn't believe how expensive it was. But he lost his job in Nova Scotia, and the only place he found a job was here. He said he had to move. And that's just, I met so many people when I was selling stuff. It was a really interesting experience, actually. Have any thoughts on government stimulus in the times ahead? More government stimulus. That's what it's going to be. I don't care who is in charge, conservatives, liberals, NDP. More government stimulus is going to be the path forward. Exactly like I said, use Alberta as the example of that, because Alberta's government arguably more conservative than a federal conservative party, and likely the Conservatives are going to win the next election. So based off that, you know what the playbook is going to be, because you've just seen it happen in Alberta, and it was stimulus, stimulus, stimulus. And Alberta, of the populous provinces in Canada, had one of the highest inflation rates, and it's no wonder. And I've been telling people this for the past 3 years. I've been saying, like, the economy was one of the worst economies was the Alberta economy during 2020. Do you think anything's got any better? It's just things have got way more distorted. So the economy is not repaired. It's not fixed. It's so funny. I think they should put on the sign as you come into Alberta, not welcome to wild rose country. It should be welcome to the place that's always recovering. Because that's really what it is. I mean, every government, it's like the recovery, and anyway, it's hilarious. But 105 likes. Thank you very much, guys. It helps if you hit the like button, because more people will get alerted that we're live. So great. Bad employment numbers usually coincide with stocks going up. It's a 50-50. I've ran that strategy on literally hundreds and hundreds of data points over the past 10 years. And the probabilities are it's nothing. You can't make a strategy off that. So yeah, it really depends on the environment. It depends more on people's psychology and what they're thinking. And are people scared of a recession? Are people starting to doubt the central planners, that what they're saying? Because the reality is, you look around in Canada, people aren't spending money. If you're going out to eat, the restaurants aren't packed out, at least the places I've been to, anymore at all. So, and the interesting thing about the Equifax report as well, that we're going to go through next week, is one of the most concerning things is young people are the ones that are being really affected really bad by this. But that surprises me, because a lot of young people are living in basements, bunkers like this one I'm doing this live stream from right now. So they don't really have any living expenses, yet they're struggling with their debt payments. Is really not good. Passive income from dividends are easy pickings in a low interest rate environment. Sheridan, Luke, why is Canadians think lower interest rates are good? Your labor is being devalued along with never-ending immigration. It won't hold well. Are Canadians hooked on cheap credit that much? Yes. Yeah, totally. We know people are just debt slaves, essentially debt dependent. I mean, people were cheering on the rate hikes, and that's why the government was cheering on the rate hikes as well, is because they know that everybody's a debt slave, and that is the plan. Just get everybody hooked and addicted to debt. You're much easier to be controlled by the government. The next time something happens, you're going to do more what they say, because guess what? They're going to be the ones controlling the money, because they're going to be the ones handing out the stimulus, exactly like during the pandemic. So, get people hooked to these high debt payments, and then what? I mean, think about it. If you rent right now, you've got lots of options. It's easy to move, in a turbulent economy. If you're a renter, it's much better than if you own a home. It's harder to sell that asset. That's if you can even sell it as a profit. As we know, most places in Canada, you wouldn't be selling it at a profit. You'd be selling it at a loss. So those people, they're just basically slave to their debt because they can't move. They have to try and keep that job that they have because, yeah, they've got limited flexibility. And what you need in a recession is the ultimate amount of flexibility. I mean, I've been through a recession. I came out of college and went into a recession. And I'm glad it happened because it really showed me how to get a job in any environment. And that's just basically easy advice here is just bulk applying for jobs. I would see applications where it was like a 10-minute application. I wouldn't bother. I would just apply for the jobs that were easy to apply for, so I could apply for lots and lots of those jobs. And I was getting interviews when a lot of my friends, they had no interviews, and I actually had like 2-3 jobs. And I unfortunately, like, a lot of them were temporary jobs because you couldn't even get like a full-time job or a part-time job. Part-time jobs were hard to come by. You couldn't get full-time jobs either. And I'm talking about retail, guys, just part-time jobs in retail. It's going to be an interesting dynamic here, though, because of the student visa program. There's like insane demand for those jobs. So you're going to have even less chance of getting part-time jobs in Canada. But yeah, like, Canadians are hooked to lower interest rates. They don't really realize that everything has a trade-off. Obviously, if rates are coming down when inflation is going up, yeah, that's not good at all. It's just simple economics. But it'll be interesting to see what happens in the future, especially with inflation. That is going to be really interesting for Canada. I mean, my base case is that we're just going to see more and more disinflation, and that just means prices are going up just at a lower rate. And I think that we're going to see all the things that you don't need go down in price. You might even see deflation, whilst all the things you do need that are controlled mainly by oligarchies like banking, grocery stores, airlines, all those things are going to go up in price. And yeah, it's just really interesting. Apart from maybe gas, because gas comes down in price because of the recession. And that actually is a good point, because oil did really get a smackdown. I wonder if it actually closed below 70 on Friday. I know it was around 69. So Brent crude oil actually closed around $71 a barrel. Maybe I was looking at West Texas, which was West Texas is down at $68 a barrel. So interesting times. When you look at commodities, they're incredibly indicative of economic activity and what's going on, especially with oil. And oil got smacked down again. And this is considering all the OPEC cuts, everything that's going on in the oil market from the supply side. So very interesting. If anybody's on here from Vancouver or Lower Mainland area, I'd be interested to hear, because I've heard a lot on the mainstream media that gas prices have gone down a lot now because the Trans Mountain pipeline is actually going. So be interested to hear if that's actually true or not. Luke, our leaders are just puppets. They already filthy rich before they get into office. And it is all, yeah, you're totally right, Philip. And it is always interesting to look at where they come from previously. Like, Pierre's a career politician. Obviously, Trudeau's a drama teacher. But I tell you what, you got to read that Willful Blindness book, because it's incredibly interesting. And that book actually mentions Grace Academy, Trudeau being linked to like transnational organized crime, or like, it's just crazy. It really is crazy. So yeah. And by the way, I turned the join button on this channel, so you can join the channel. You don't have to. There's no obligation to do that. It's 10 cents per day, so it's not like it's hugely expensive. But the reason I did that is because I'm planning on doing group meetups next year, and I obviously want to have a group of people. I've got an email list. There's a link in the description. That's a free way that you can sign up if you want to be included in that. So yeah, it's just going to be a meetup. It's not going to be like Rebel Capitalist Live Canada or anything like that. But yeah, and I've got some great interviews coming on the podcast channel. We're actually streaming on the podcast channel right now, as well as the main Market Mania channel. The interview that I have with the housing insider is going to blow your mind. This guy is incredibly smart. It was one of you guys that actually put me up to finding out about him, because he was on Travis's channel. Obviously, longtime viewers of this channel know that I'm buddies with Travis. I was down in Texas with him earlier this year, and we did a video together. I was hoping to hook up with him in October, but I don't think there's going to be enough time unless we go do it at like 4 a.m., which maybe we will do, because I'll be severely jet lagged from Asia. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. But yeah, that will be an incredible thing for people to listen to, because it just blew my mind. He has so much information, such a smart guy, like a quant, essentially. And yeah, it's just unbelievable. Yeah, EQ Bank is not a bad bank to have as like a second bank or a backup bank. This is not sponsored by EQ Bank, but they're just low fee. Well, they're pretty much no fee for everything, actually. So that is good. The only bad thing about EQ Bank is obviously you can't deposit cash, and there's limited places where you can actually get cash. Thought you left Canada. Where are you heading? Stay tuned for the next live stream. So I'll be doing a live stream next month, and I'm going to try and do these on a monthly basis now. It's been absolutely crazy over this past summer. Like, it's just been, yeah, just crazy busy. But now it's time to, and I'll do one around Nomad Capitalist as well, so I can give you my thoughts and some of the things that I may have, well, I'm definitely going to learn a hell of a lot there, so that'll be really interesting. I'm looking forward to seeing and meeting some of you that are going as well. I know some of you here are also attending, so that'll be great. Just looking down here, trying not to miss. Why invest in Canada when US return on investment is better? I agree. The other thing about the US is the dollar milkshake theory. If you haven't seen the dollar milkshake theory, there's a video, I think it's by Real Vision. That's the best explanation that you'll get on it in a nutshell, in a very good way. And yeah, like the dollar milkshake theory is playing out for sure. I believe in that 100%. And if you believe in that, then you'll know that US assets will continue to outperform the rest of the world because of it basically attracting so much investment, because people need those dollars. That's the thing. People think a lot about the domestic dollar, but they don't realize there's a whole euro dollar system that's even bigger than the domestic dollar. And when most people think about the dollar, and I'm talking about the US dollar here, obviously, they're thinking about the domestic money supply, the money printing the Fed does, and the government in the United States. And that's the way the media is always talking about it as well. There's only a few people that talk about the euro dollar system. One guy is Jeff Snyder. He's incredibly smart on it. Some of his videos are pretty esoteric, but you know, he's incredibly smart. He knows what he's talking about more than I do about the euro dollar system. And really, it's that external demand, and it's the demand for euro dollars. And basically, you can almost think of a euro dollar, which is basically a US dollar outside of the United States, as a different currency. And there are many countries as well that use dollars, and that's an interesting thing to think about as well. God, I could just hear like some beeping noise, or maybe I'm going crazy. I don't know. But anyway, let's see what else we got here. This is Global Reset. They're working together to bring in a new system that will run on blockchain technology. The behavior across the globe is virtually identical. US no more dollar status. Yeah, I don't think that's true regarding the US. I mean, just look at the treasury market right now. People have been saying that it's going to rip and rip and rip, but the demand for treasuries and US dollars just keeps increasing. The DXY right now is still, it's gone down a little bit over the past couple of months, but it's really pulling back, and that looks like a double bottom. That's an interesting pattern on this chart. I'm just going to bring it up. So basically, this is the DXY. It's still at 100 here, but if you really extend this chart and we go back, let's put it on a weekly chart or a monthly chart even, that's going to show us way more. Oh my God. Let's make that look a better visual. Okay, so you can basically see how the dollar has been at this high before, but it's pretty strong. Like, even if you go back to 2008, the dollar was around 85 and pretty much maintained that range, and now we're at 100. So the dollar is just increasing, and the dollar index DXY is just like the dollar versus a basket of currency. The euro has the biggest weight in there, but yeah, I just interesting. Yeah, yeah, I agree. So Pilot says the Canadian government propped the housing market up instead of businesses. That's why the economy is shaky. Yeah, and I agree that's been done for over a decade, and that's the problem because basically all the businesses now, they are dependent on the housing market or the government, most of them. Most of them are dependent on either or, and a lot of the lending that goes on is real estate related. I mean, how much money do you have to borrow to build a condo building in downtown Vancouver or downtown Toronto? It's verging on billions, if not billions of dollars, and those are the big loans. And nobody has the money, nobody has cash, so the banks have just enjoyed this. They've just sit back and thought, this is great because we actually have an asset. And for most of them, I think unfortunately they believe the mainstream view, like all these central planners, that hey, like I'm talking about like the executives at the banks and stuff, they just believe that, hey, yeah, immigration is high. There's always going to be demand for housing. They've restricted supply for so long. So there's going to be no problem. Housing is always going to go up in value, essentially. But it's so easy to break apart that because all you've got to do is look at all the massive amounts of land. I mean, just look at the prairies, for instance, because they don't even have trees on the land that surrounds the major cities. So just think about you've just got like essentially unlimited land around these cities, and how can the housing prices go up? And essentially, it's not the housing prices that are going up, it's the land prices that the houses sit on. The house is a liability. When you buy a house, the house is a liability. It's the land that rises in price. And that's why you see, like in places like Toronto and Vancouver, they tear down the houses. The houses become tear downs because, again, the value is not in the house, it's actually in the land. And that's why they tear them down and build these mansions on them. And yeah, a lot of that has been to do with money laundering, especially in British Columbia. Some of that, I think, now is coming into Calgary because of the stigma that has been attached to British Columbia. So be interesting to see what happened. Hey, Terry, hope you're doing well. Yeah, the smoke is absolutely insane, and it's become an inhospitable place to live now. The smoke never really affected me, but this year I got affected by it really, really bad. I think it's one of those things that people overlook and just think, oh, it's not too bad. But, year upon year, it just gets worse. And you don't want to go down the rabbit hole that I've been down looking at the smoke and the effect it has on your health, because it's just absolutely awful. So it makes you just want to stay inside. And then between winter and the smoke, you're just stuck indoors most of the time. I mean, I know you can get outdoors and ski, and I've done that, but you know what? The prices now are just unbelievable. Just can't do it anymore when I've seen prices go up that much. No, I'm not involved in crypto. Pilot, where should I move from Toronto? Such a hard question to ask. I mean, I don't know if you're open to moving international. If you're actually a pilot, probably to the US. I mean, I know a pilot, a good buddy of mine now, and he basically says there's even like staffing agencies that headhunt pilots from Canada now because the wages are just better, the benefits are better, and that's why like the pilots are essentially striking right now, is because they can just leave and go somewhere else. So if they're not paid the same, why are they going to stop in Canada? I mean, it's only going to be the people where they've got family commitments, or even that. There's no excuse, in my opinion, for saying, like, oh, I'm too tired, I can't move this and that, because I've seen people from all over that have moved who have families of, three, four kids, and yeah, they move just fine. So you just got to be really open minded. I mean, moving anywhere is very, very difficult, and it's change, and your mind does not like change. Your mind just likes the same old, because then it thinks you're safe. And unfortunately, you only learn and grow when you go outside your comfort zone. As somebody who's moved many, many times across different countries, different provinces, I know that for sure. And it's definitely not easy, but it's 100% worth it. And I don't regret any of the moves I've made, because they've all resulted in something good happening, some way, shape, or form. And I've learned a lot more about myself as well. I think the era of stimulus packages are over, unless World War III or another. Yeah, I guess we'll see. Time will tell. I mean, I think that stimulus packages are only just getting started. And by stimulus packages, I mean direct stimulus, where it's very direct into the economy. So the government is subsidizing wages, or they're actually putting checks in people's back pocket. There's like a universal basic income. I mean, that was kind of what they did with the CRB program. It was sort of like a universal basic income trial almost. And they have actually been trialing that some places in Canada. I was thinking of actually covering a video about that the mainstream media did, that was very, very interesting. Yeah, all politicians are the same. It's just what rich people vote them in. I totally agree. I totally agree. What really matters is having a smaller government that is less involved with your life and doesn't interfere with your life. And you're not, I mean, the thing is, it's all well and good paying taxes if you feel like you're getting value for money when it comes to your taxes. But if people are just exploiting the system, you're paying a high amount of tax. I mean, the governments are pretty smart. They know that they can't just jack up income tax. If you think about it, the fairest tax is income tax, and it should be the only tax that we pay. Because if you think about it, like, it's based upon your income. So then if people are earning less, they're not taxed as highly, which is fair. When you've got like high amounts on your sales tax, that obviously impacts the poorest people the hardest. But I think income tax is the fairest tax. But when you actually look at the system we have, like say you're in Nova Scotia, I think the tax rate, sales tax is 15%. So you're paying, let's say, 30% taxes on your income. And then you go out to spend money and you're paying 15% tax on everything you buy. But you already paid tax on that income. Now, I know it's not everything, like certain types of food are excluded. It varies wildly province to province. Like BC, for example, they only charge GST if you go out for a meal in a restaurant, at least unless it's changed recently. So they're not charging like the provincial sales tax as well. But all this tax that you pay is on top of your income tax. So obviously it compounds. And then when you hear people like the Fraser Institute come out and say that you're paying 48% of your income in taxes, yeah, I can see it. It's not like most people think, well, I'm not paying like that much unless you're like serious high income earner. You're not paying that much tax, but income tax I'm talking about. But then you add on sales taxes and everything like that, the carbon taxes, a lot of these taxes as well, they are taxing the amount including like GST, for instance. So then you're paying tax upon paying tax upon paying tax, which is completely insane. And again, that would be all well and good, like if you were getting good health care, if the roads were good, everything like that. If crime was going down, if enforcement was going down, if corruption was going down, because Canada has a massive corruption problem and fraud problem that only seems to be getting worse. I wonder where that's coming from. You know, it's just unbelievable. Is Alberta still Canada's promised land for entrepreneurs? No, no. I don't think anywhere in Canada is the promised land for entrepreneurs anymore, unfortunately. It's just, yeah, it's just not. I don't want to leave Canada. I want to leave Toronto. Yeah, I'm not sure where to suggest them. It sort of depends on how much you earn as well, where you should go. Quantitative teasing says it's stack gold and silver, period. Yeah, I mean, I've been thinking about doing a video on that. I was about, that could just be a retirement strategy in itself, because I feel like it's just a bet on government stupidity, gold and silver. I don't really, it is an inflation hedge if you look historically, but I think it's more of a bet on government stupidity than anything else. I know this is sarcastic. 6.6% unemployment rate. Totally real, not fake at all. Please trust the government. Yeah, I've got a video tomorrow which we're going to be going through the recent labor report. Again, these reports, there's so many suspicious things going on in the report that you're almost like, what are the probabilities of having this gain, which was the same as the last amount of jobs that we lost, and then we had exactly the same number that came 4 months ago. I mean, geez, feel like if you did the lottery, you'd just be winning in that situation, because what are the chances? What are the probabilities? But the unemployment rate is not accurate at all. Just like the inflation rate is not accurate. You could double it or even triple it in most instances. What I was thinking of doing is like a video, because inflation is personal as well. Some people will have inflation of like 100% because they rent. Other people are on a fixed rate mortgage. They haven't seen their payments gone up much. It's mainly just property taxes, something like that. So their inflation's lower. Some people are taking public transit, so that might reduce their costs. They're not having to pay to run a car and auto insurance and all those different things. So inflation is very personal. It's hard to calculate. I'll give people that. But to say like it's around, 3% or whatever they're saying it at right now is just completely insane. I mean, it's just ridiculous. But again, like that's probably being pulled down a lot by the things that people don't need because nobody's buying them. Because guess what? I mean, you had the Canadian Tire CEO. What does Canadian Tire sell? They sell a lot of things that are discretionary items. Like it's not like they're a grocery store. And he's seeing that the consumers tapped out. They're not spending money anymore. And he's waving the red flag on it. And yeah, and the Walmart CEO said the same thing, although that's a US company, but they have obviously the Canada subsidiary of that company. And yeah, it's not good. And think about it, guys, how weak everything's been in Canada, and the US is just going into its recession right now, potentially. I mean, the yield curve just uninverted in the United States. That typically means, they're going into a recession. Shit is hitting the fan there within the next 6 months, if not already in a recession right now. How's that going to impact Canada? Obviously, Canada, largest trading partner of the United States. So that's going to impact them. That's going to impact Canada even more. So yeah, really interesting. Just going to go down here. God, this is comments are so small. I thought I saw a super chat come in. Can you find someone to interview regarding farmland evaluation, positive, negatives, and how it will be affected by looming housing market crash? Yeah, I mean, I'll try and find somebody. Actually, the guy I've got coming on, the Housing Insider, he is probably an excellent resource for that. But farmland at the end of the day is land, but obviously less and less arable land now. So that is a tailwind for farmland. But you've had an insane amount of people buying farmland. Farmland's increased a hell of a lot in value. So it depends where the farmland is. Like, is it nearer to a city where there's also sort of development opportunity as well? So, there's a lot of things to consider with that. And I'm no expert on that at all. I'm no expert on anything. Let's face it. Do we get an election before October 2025? Prediction? I doubt it. I mean, Trudeau is going to be looking at those same polls and thinking he doesn't want to call an election right now because he knows he's just going to lose it straight up. So he's already said multiple times that he's not calling an early election. Maybe he does. I mean, is he a guy to take it his word? Absolutely not. So I don't know. Roll of the dice, but an election cycle will be interested. I'm more interested in the promises that are going to become broken promises. That will be really interesting. Much of the Conservatives' promises are just going to be the same as all the other parties, just wrapped slightly differently from somebody that people agree with more. And it will be a really interesting election cycle, though. And some of the debates will be really, really funny as well, because, it's interesting. Drinking the hair of the dog right now. Last night was a 15 beer night. Oh my God. Yeah, a lot of fires and arson that we've seen over the past 12 months. You can be on either channel. The podcast channel, I'm going to be focusing on more and doing more videos on there. I got tons of interviews lined up, and I've got videos that are coming on the podcast channel. So that's not a dead channel by all means. In fact, that channel's I'm going to be getting that going more with people, getting some smarter people on there, way smarter than I am. And Hilliard Macbeth has agreed to come back onto that channel. In fact, I got a message him about that, and he is just great guy for the housing bubble. He's done such a massive deep dive on it, and that and other bubble cycles as well. Move to Buffalo, house prices are half, and you're just an hour away, an hour and a half away from the big smoke. And you know, the interesting thing about Buffalo is as well, those housing prices, if you actually went and rented them out, you'd be renting them out and actually getting some cash flow. Whereas you'd be cash flow negative on the, not the Windsor side of the border, Niagara Falls side of the border, you'd be cash flow negative. The world is a mess. Good luck. Get off the grid. Start a community. Yeah, Vancouver is I couldn't live in Vancouver for sure. The zombie land, essentially. There's some nice places in the lower mainland, but Vancouver is a zombie land. Is anyone paying attention to the Cambodia Canal? Singapore, the Philippines must be sweating. Not sure what that is about. $1.34 in Toronto for gas, but nobody's put it in Vancouver. We got somebody from Australia here. It's got to be early morning there. Yeah, probably early morning, I would think. Early morning Sunday. What happened to Pierre's axe the tax slogan? I think that is the worst thing that he could pick. Is he constantly goes on about this carbon tax election. And man, you got to be seriously disconnected to think that is top of the priority list for Canadians right now. I mean, I know the carbon tax, yeah, it's going to take 5 minutes for him to get in charge and then vote through a bill to cancel that tax, and then it's done. So I suppose he can do a victory lap straight after if he says it's all about the carbon tax this election. This election should be on big government. It should be the election of big government. Do we want big government or small government? The problem is you get more and more government. Guess what? More of your electorate, more of your voters, they work for the government. So they're obviously not going to vote for small government, which is unfortunate and probably the way the central planners and politicians actually want. Yeah, high taxes are killing Canada. Yeah. They need to do the opposite, really. They don't want you to own a car. You look at these new communities like the one I did in that video, they for sure don't want you to own a car. I mean, yeah. I saw even an old lady got debanked the other day that was covered on Rebel News. That was probably a few weeks ago, actually, not the other day. Thank you, Canada RV, for the $10 super chat. Thank you so much, my friend. I wish I could gift you memberships for that, but YouTube doesn't have that feature yet. Farmland overpriced. Yeah. He will definitely not call an early election. Yeah, no, I totally agree. Well, I don't know. It's 50-50. I can't take him at his word because he's a liar and a narcissist, but I doubt it because he seems like an egomaniac. And if it's all about him and being re-elected, less about the country, then he wants to stay in power and hopefully get those polls slightly better. And maybe if he's on the inside and he knows that the next global financial crisis is coming, he's going to know so many hands are going to come out and beg the government for more stimulus money because everybody's so indebted. Like, create the debt slaves, and then It's easier to control people. I mean, how easy is it to control somebody with zero debts who can just sell up and leave in just well, not an instant, but very, very quickly? I live in Montreal. I see every quarter Hydro-Quebec congratulate themselves for making 4 billion in profit, yet they keep increasing electricity. And where I live, just a rain and we have a power outage. Yeah, power outages are so common across rural Canada as well. There's been a lot of problems with the grid in Alberta. The infrastructure just isn't being built to meet all the new people that are coming into the country as well. So it's no wonder you don't see many hospitals being built. You don't see many power stations being built either, So yeah, I wonder if that 4 billion profit goes to shareholders, or obviously Hydro-Quebec sounds like it's going to be owned by the government, but I don't know if that 4 billion profit goes into the government coffers. Does it get distributed? Like, is it a publicly traded company that's owned by the government? Thank you, Tracy. Love this channel. Will be watching. You're lucky you aren't in Texas. You would go bankrupt due to the electricity bills and the property tax bills. Obviously Texas has no state income tax, and you see obviously housing prices are lower in Texas, but property taxes are quite frankly insane there because the local governments have to get the money from somewhere. Hello, Steve. Montreal gas 150. Wow, that's way higher than Vancouver. I'm not Vancouver, Toronto. Somebody else said 134. This isn't a replay. No, reading through the comments and bringing them up on the screen right now. Which government is more woke, the UK or Canada? That is a really hard one. I would say probably the UK. Chris, I see you in there. Panama calling. How's the rail strike going to impact the economy? Your thoughts? Yeah, I mean, well, the thing is, obviously, trade is slowing down anyway. You've got less goods that are moving around because of the recession that we're in. So it might not impact things as much as people think, but it depends how long it lasts. And I haven't heard much about the rail strike, to be honest. That's something I'll have to go and check out after this video. Look at France and think, never mind. The government here in Canada takes and takes, then sends back a smiggin, and we're supposed to be happy. Yeah, and they send lots of money to foreign countries as well. The same countries that they have refugees coming from. I mean, it's crazy when you think about it. Or maybe that's the way it's meant to be. Maybe they do these programs to stop them. I don't know. But a lot of that money goes into corrupt people's hands. Vancouver is worse. Well, I think that's it, guys. I think I just got to the top of the comments. So I want to thank you so much for being here on this live stream. Obviously, we'll be back tomorrow to cover the jobs data. Those numbers going to be incredibly interesting. So stay tuned for that. Think I've got it penciled in for like 2 or 3 o'clock Mountain Time. So that'll be around 5 Eastern Time. So please, yeah. I'll see you there tomorrow. Thank you once again. Thank you for all the super chats. Thank you for people who've joined the channel. Thank you so much. And I will see you guys in the next one. Take it easy, everybody. Have a good night.